Good afternoon, everyone. I almost said good morning because we usually have these webinars in the morning. So good afternoon, everyone. And thank you once again for joining us. I would like to just request that we give it a minute or two just to allow other attendees to also join. So if we can just give them a minute or two and then we will commence with the webinar. Thank you. Great. I think we do have quite a number of people who have joined, and I think we can go ahead and convene. So good afternoon, everyone, once again, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. For those in Joburg, I hope we are keeping warm as I am. My name is Bianca Moyo, and I'm the Senior Communications Manager at SALT Employee Benefits. We are certainly delighted to have you with us this afternoon. So today's discussion is one of the most important when it comes to understanding the risk as well as the consequences of non-compliance. It is important to acknowledge the critical role non-compliance plays in the retirement fund industry, and unfortunately, non-compliance has been a long-standing and persistent challenge within our industry. The challenge is so intense as it does not only affect the integrity of our industry, but more so importantly, it does affect the security, the retirement security of our members who depend on these funds for their future. So on today's webinar, we are joined by the fund's Legal Risk and Compliance Officer, Ms. Penny Spenceres, as well as the head of legal, Malisela Molefe from SALT Employee Benefits, who will go through the intricacies of non-compliance and explain to us what non-compliance really is, its impact, and how members can assist in curbing this non-compliance issue. The session is only 2 hours long, and before I hand over to our speakers, I would like to do a few housekeeping rules. First one, please ensure that your mics are on mute throughout the session as when the presenters are presenting. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them on the chat box or on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Again, the webinar is recorded, and both the recording and the slides will be sent to you after the webinar. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our speakers, and over to you, colleagues.
Afternoon, Bianca, and afternoon, everybody. Let me put my camera on. Bianca, thank you for our welcome and introduction. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. And thank you to Malisela, the legal advisor from SALT, for joining us and taking this time that we can work through this important issue of non-compliance. So my name is Penny Spenceres. As Bianca says, I'm the Legal and Risk and Compliance Officer of Transport Sector. Okay, so I think we can get going. So today we're going to be dealing with the following questions. So we'll discuss what non-compliance is, because it's not only to do with non-payment of contributions, but there are other issues that amount to non-compliance. I don't know, Bianca, is it better to have my camera on and off? Do you think it's taking too much bandwidth? What is better?
Either way, it depends with the strength of your Wi-Fi. If it's super strong, you can leave your camera on. If not, I would advise that you switch it off.
Okay, I'm not going to take a chance, especially now that it's raining. No, so
Absolutely.
you
That's
can't trust
perfectly
this.
fine.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll then deal with what constitutes non-compliance, the known reasons, so we'll discuss those. And also in between all of this, as Marisela and I go through everything, please feel free to put your hands up and jump in and ask questions. Don't wait to the end, so at least we can deal with your questions as they arise. We'll also be dealing with what actions we have taken to address non-compliance. We'll discuss how members can check if the employer is compliant, where to report non-compliance. We'll have a item on fraud awareness and Q&A, and then our Bianca will take us through the closing. Okay, so let's get started. So our first question is, what is non-compliance? What amounts to non-compliance? So non-compliance refers to a failure of participating employers to adhere to the rules of the fund and also to adhere to the regulations and the Pension Funds Act, and the conduct, and we've got a conduct standard. So it's not only aligned to and not only limited to timely payment of contribution schedules, contributions and submission of data with contribution schedules and the full data, but it can relate to a little more than merely these two. And we will discuss these. So it is important that it's all very well when we pay contributions and contributions are paid on time, but we must have the data as well. Failure to provide the data and in the data that we in the format that we need it is also amounts to non-compliance. So as we've said, and we've made the important point here, and I think we will discuss it further, contributions must also be equivalent to the schedule provided of the fund. So if the schedule that is uploaded through your portal when you log in to provide the member data, if that member data and the schedule doesn't align to the contribution paid, and the bank account, and we cannot reconcile to the bank account, we cannot reconcile, we won't be able to allocate. If there's an underpayment or overpayment, we cannot allocate, and the contributions will be retained unallocated. So it is very important that we get the correct data submitted. And we'll talk about the type of data that we need, because non-compliance relates to not providing us with the full member data. And there are reasons for that. And Chris or Marisela, I don't know which one you prefer. What do you think, just to give a little more detail on the reasons for, how important it is for that member data. It's not just us having the information available, but there are other reasons. And what do you think there are other reasons that we've got from the fund that we need the data, correct data and full data available from the employer? Any ideas? What do you suggest, Chris, or any ideas on why we need that full data?
Thank you very much, Penny, and thank you for the attendees on this important topic for today. I think of importance, you've mentioned that the rules of the fund requires that the employer must pay contributions, and the contribution that the employer pays must be supported by corresponding schedule. But it's important that the information on the schedule it's accurate, because as the administrator, you use that information in order to allocate those contributions to the members that has been contributed to. So it is well and good to pay contributions, but if the information the employer provides is not sufficient, it is difficult to then allocate such money to the people that is intended to. Let's take, for example, if an employer pays 1,000 rand and give a schedule for 10 members at 100 rand each, surely at face value, that employer allocation of 100 rand each for 10 members equivalent to 1,000 rand. But if on that schedule, you find that there is 3 Malisela Molefers with the same ID number, that schedule is not accurate. Now, and I think the legislature, Penny, look at it this way. You might be aware, colleagues, of the FSCA conduct standard that was introduced in 2022. It came into effect in March 2023. Now, I think the conduct standard was created specifically for that, for employers when they make payment, to say your schedules at least must contain this information. And that information for me, it's information that should be readily available for each and every employer. But we still have instances where employers do not adhere to this for one reason or another. And I think some of the reasons, we must hear them today to say, Mr. Employer, why is it difficult to comply with conduct standard? Because the information that is required, it's readily available.
Yeah.
Or it
Agreed.
ought to be readily available at your disposal, because this is information relating to your own people that you employ.
Yeah. Agreed. Really
Yes.
agreed. It is information that's readily available. I agree with you, Malisela. And as you said, I think it's important for us, you made a nice point there. I think it's important for us to hear what the problem is, or if there are challenges that employers face, why they can't allocate or can't give us the full information as required by the conduct standard. Agreed.
Yes.
And I know the employers that we have engaged with on the non-compliance, a lot of the employers, I know that the employers feel that this isn't their core business. Their core business is, your core business is running your trucks, getting deliveries out, getting, making sure the contracts are complied with, and you get payment in. So, and I know this is an admin function that is left to the HR. But remember, this is a fundamental part of your payroll. And it is so important to get this information right. It also, by not having the accurate information, am I right, Malisela, when we go through our internal audit, we get questions from our internal auditors about why we've got 4 records for a member, or if a member withdraws, doesn't get all their benefit, or if a member lands up having unclaimed benefits, because when we don't have full information and we cannot allocate to a member, we can't trace a member, we land up increasing our unclaimed benefits as well. And I think that's part of the problem from the administrator's perspective as well. When with the tracing, we can't trace our members. Is that correct, Malisela?
Definitely, Penny. And if you look at the requirements of the conduct standard, what must be contained in the schedule, you will realize that it makes, if everything else is there, it makes the job of the administrator and the fund very easy.
Yeah.
To administer the fund in a productive way and in a compliant way. I'll give an example. If you look at what is it that is required, you require the name of the fund. Surely we know that the fund that we participate in.
Yeah.
We require the fund registration number. We require the period in respect of which those contributions, the payment that you are making, the period for which it's applicable. We require the name, address of you as the employer. Now, if you look at these 4 requirements, by now, every employer that is the participating employer in the fund should have this.
Correct. Agreed.
Now, there are instances, Penny, where you find employers multiple pay points.
Yes.
Now, in those instances, you need to indicate at which pay point that contribution
Correct.
is for.
Correct.
And to make the work of the administrator easy, you also must indicate the responsible person at that employer or pay point
Yes.
that is responsible for dealing with contributions and schedules. Now, this makes it easy for when there are discrepancies in the information provided, the fund and or the administrator know which or who must, or the question that they need to ask, where must they direct them to?
Correct.
And it's very important so that when there is no feedback, we know the responsible person for Malesala tracking is Mr. Molefe. He's the one responsible for payment. Now, another important thing, the identity of the person in section 13A8 and 9 of the Act. Now, section 13A8 and 9 provides that you as the employer must say the person responsible for payment of contributions is Penny, and if you do not provide that person, it defaults to the directors of the company. So you need to provide the details, the names of and the details of the directors of the company. This it's important because remember, if contributions are not paid, this person here is now personally liable.
Correct.
For the payment of those contributions. So the company does not pay contributions, but if we have the name of this person that is identified in terms of section 13A, 8 and 9 of the Pension Funds Act, we can now demand those contributions directly from that person as a natural person and not from the company as a juristic person. And
Correct.
this you'll see when we deal with the slides later on. It is important that we have the name of this person because this person, the Act now criminalizes the non-payment of contributions.
Yeah.
Now, because you can arrest a juristic person, a company, this person now becomes the person that in the event that there's any legal action and or criminal sanctions, this person is responsible party.
Correct. Wonderful. That's a very important point. And Marisa, the one thing, and I'm belaboring here quite a bit. So obviously, when participating employers first enter the fund, the process that we have as a fund, and all of you that have completed the required documentation, participating employers are required to notify of this, and appoint a responsible party, a responsible person. As Malisela said, if we don't get that appointment, we usually fall back on who the directors are of the juristic entity of the company or members of the closed corporation. However, and I do emphasize this, the FSCA is being very, very strict about us ensuring that we request and get this information. So if we do not get the information, it actually also amounts to non-compliance. So, for example, you will get, once you join the fund, you will get a declaration and the person has to sign. The responsible party or the director has to sign a document appointing it. And I'm emphasizing this. If we don't get that and we request it, we do have the right and we do lay complaints and we do refer the matter to the Office of the Pension Fund Adjudicator to get the appointment done. Because the PFA has been quite strict on that now to say, if we proceed against a non-compliant employer and we haven't asked for these details, they will not assist us in getting the determination. So the FSCA and the PFA, I should say, the Office of the Pension Fund Adjudicator, has been very strict on this provision. So our position now is, and I emphasize, if we don't get this information, we will be referring a complaint to the PFA. So I'm pleased that we did quite a lot of emphasis on that, Malisela.
Thank you, Penny. And
so
maybe just to add on what you have said.
Yes.
So we have talked about what from an employer side, the information that is required. But of importance, in terms of the conduct standard, there's information from a member side that must be contained in that schedule. Like I said, the information from where I stand is information that is readily available for the employer. One of the information is the full name of that member. Surely when I employ a member, I will get the ID, I'll get the CVs or whatever that I'll get. So I will have the full name of that employer. Of importance also, the date when that person joins the fund. His date of birth is important, ID number and or passport number. We also require an employer industry number and that person's income tax number. And people might want to ask, but why these requirements, like your tax number and all that? If you look at the people that have experienced the two-pot system, when the two-pot system hit, all the employers or all the members whose employers had this information correctly provided, the claims for two-pot system was a seamless process. And important, the contact number of that member. And where applicable, you encourage the cell phone numbers of those employer and of those employees. And I think as employers, we need to be saying to our employees, as and when you change your contact number, please advise us as the employer so that when you submit your monthly schedule, the members' contact details are also updated. And I think this is very important.
Very important.
Yes, very important that as employers, they need to then say, this remind your employees at all times to say, when you change your contact details, please make sure that we as the employers are advised. Not only does it assist the fund, it also assists you as the employer to know the whereabouts of your own employee.
Yeah. That's a good point, Chris. And the other point that's very important as well, and because people will say, why do we need, and it doesn't help just to upload one number. So we validated the system that if you try and upload, because we picked up instances where HR adds one number. So they add the HR number in, especially with non-compliant employers, because they add just one number in. So when we send out messages of non-compliance, so we are required in terms of 13A to send SMSs out to members whose employers haven't paid over their contributions. So what we found is a lot of HR departments are uploading one cell phone number. So members don't actually know when their contributions aren't paid across. So we've added a validation onto the system that if you try and only add one cell phone number, it won't allow you. So now we do require that, and we do require a member cell phone number. And it is important. Our members are entitled to know if contributions aren't paid, and we have a legal obligation in terms of the Section 13A to send out SMSs at 30 days of non-compliance, 60 days of non-compliance, and 90 days of non-compliance. And then at least members know that we are on top of it, and we are instituting action and taking legal action to recover contributions that aren't paid. So that's why, Chris, I think we've pointed out quite a lot of important reasons why that cell phone number is required. And also for communications, as you said, advise peer, and also to help with the claims process, to reduce any unclaimed benefits in due course. I think we've given quite a few reasons why that cell phone number and the updated cell phone number is required. What do you think, Chris?
Yes, Penny, definitely. Yeah, spot on. I think, and also if you look at the requirements, we also say email address. If the member has got an email address, it facilitates communication to that member, seamless. Postal address and residential address. And I'll tell you why the address of a member is important. At times, a member, let's say a member passes on. We are doing an investigation for a death claim. Surely we need to know where that member resides. And if we have that information readily available, it makes the process of investigation easy.
Correct. Yeah.
We also require the members' annual pensionable emoluments, the percentage and amount of contributions. Also, the contributions, what is for member and what is for employer. And lastly, the details of any additional voluntary contributions. Remember, as a member of the fund, if my employer is contributing 10% and I'm contributing 10%, the law allows for me to make additional voluntary contributions in order to increase my retirement benefit. Now, this is important because if, as an employer, this is not mentioned and we just receive an amount, we don't know where to put it, it becomes difficult for us to link that amount to a particular member as an additional voluntary contribution. So if Mr. Molefe paid, you are paying for Mr. Molefe contribution for 5,000, and he says, I want to make additional 2,000. It must be mentioned in that schedule to say, this 5,000, 2.5 is employer, 2.5 it's member, and the 2,000 that you see here as extra is additional voluntary contributions.
Yeah. Good point. And we do encourage members to pay additional voluntary contributions. Any additional monies paid into a retirement fund is only to the employee's benefit, to the member's benefit, and improves your retirement outcome. So I know as a fund, we are trying to encourage that. So it is important that we need that type of information. Definitely. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe Penny, you might want to take us through a checklist.
Yes.
A checklist for a tick box for non-compliance.
Yeah, definitely. I think just to emphasize what we've been saying. So, and these are some of the cases of non-compliance that we have been dealt with, that we are dealing with internally. We have had instances where funds don't register at the date when they start trading. So in terms of the provisions of the National Bargaining Council and the main agreement, the main agreement states that when a participator or when an employer enters into the industry, it is required to participate in a retirement fund. So non-registration of the company within a fund amounts to non-compliance. Okay, so that is the non-compliance. There will be dealt with. I think it's a lot of that enforcement is done with the by the bargaining council. But if it comes to us, we also try and assist with that. The other most very important non-compliance is failure to pay contributions on or before the 20th day of every month. So the effect of that is that if contributions aren't paid by the 20th of every month, so say for the March contributions, we were expecting that we're busy reconciling the March contributions now that ought to have been paid by the 20th of April. Remember, your late payment interest gets calculated based on the conduct standard. So the late payment interest isn't considered, it's considered as, well, it is penalty interest, but it's considered as penalty because the contribution of the member ought to have been invested. And if it's invested late, the member loses out on his investment of his retirement. So that's why it's so important to pay by the 20th day of the month, because we are obliged to add LPI, the late payment interest. As I've said, non-payment of the late payment interest, non-payment of that amounts to non-compliance. And a lot of our complaints that we submit to the PFA against non-compliant employers is for failure to pay contributions on by the 20th of the month. So the contributions are paid, but LPI isn't. And we do take steps, and we do take legal steps to recover those and lay complaints. Obviously, as Malisela has emphasized, if we submit contributions with no matching schedule, remember, it is imperative that the schedule matches to the contributions. Otherwise, it affects the whole payroll and we cannot allocate. And the contributions remain unallocated. Obviously, the FSCA, when they look at our financials, do not like unallocated funds. Money that's paid into a retirement fund belongs to a member, some member, and has to be allocated. So when financials are done and when the auditors come in, there's a big question if there's huge unallocated contributions, and the question is why. So obviously we are very careful at that, because we don't want to be under the watchful eye of the FSCA and our auditors. So we are very strict with this non-compliance. Another item, another non-compliant is you submit contributions and within, I suppose, it's inaccurate schedules or missing contributions and accurate schedules. So the schedules are right, but contributions are wrong, same problem. Under-declaring the number of members to a fund. So we've had instances where employers will register some members and not others. All members who fall within the bargaining unit as defined under the Bargaining Council main agreement fall within the bargaining unit and are compelled to belong to a retirement fund. Failure to register all your employees as soon as they start work, even if they're on probation, as soon as they start working for you, they are required to be a member of the fund and they have to contribute. If you fail to declare them, because a lot of members will go and say, I don't want this contribution to come off my salary. I'd rather get the money. It is illegal for an employer to agree not to pay the contributions. And we've got those instances, and when we pick them up, those get referred to the Office of the Pension Fund Adjudicator. The final, obviously, checklist, you must ensure that your correct contribution rate is declared. As mentioned by Malisela in the slide before, submission of the wrong contribution rates, like under declaration, is also determined or considered non-compliant. So, Chris, where are we going next? Okay, can you give us nice examples?
Thank you very much for the above. And I think what you said above, as an employer, if you look at that checklist, you can always say, okay, I'm doing this. If on any of what Penny has said, you fall on the right side, it means you are non-compliant, irrespective of whether you ticked all the boxes except one. But if you look at what Penny have said, Penny, would I be correct in summary to say the most common non-compliance cases you find, it's where an employer deduct contributions from members and does not hand it over to the fund and keep it for themselves, and where an employer who employs 100 employees declares only 10 and pays for that 10, hoping that or thinking that by doing that, you'll be said to be compliant. But in hindsight, the 90 that are not there in the fund means that that employer is non-compliant, irrespective of whether you gave us 10 members and you pay for 10 members. The fact that you have other 90 that you are hiding under the table makes you non-compliant.
100%, Chris, you've made a very important point. As you say, the most common is where employers deduct contributions. And, I've seen it time and time again in the 13A process, and I think you've seen it as well, Marisela, where employers think, and it's it's like a pyramid scheme. In other words, so this month, and we do understand that there are challenges in the industry, and we're very cognizant of when an employer comes to us and say, listen, we've got cash flow problems. It doesn't mean the mere fact you've got cash flow problems doesn't justify you deducting contributions from a member's package and not paying it across. So we understand that there's cash flow problems, but the deduction of contributions and not paying them across to us amounts to, it's basically considered as theft. And that's why we take criminal action in terms of Section 13A. So, that's a very common. And what happens is, and this is what I've seen in practice, and I think Marisela can confirm this, you think it's 1 month. I just need a little bit of extra time for this month or next month. By the time you look at it, you're 6 months on your 90-day on the 90 days down the line, you're avoiding communicating with us. You're not responding to our letters. We've reported you to the FSCA because we report at 30, 60, and 90 days. And you only come to us 7 months down the line when we're laying a complaint or we've laid criminal charges. It makes it very difficult for us at that stage to try and help you. So, if you've got these challenges, it's not as if we can agree to vary the main agreement, but we can try and work out a payment plan for you. So that's the first point I'd like to make. I don't know if you agree with those comments, Chris, about that deduction of contributions and, how we can assist employers if there is a challenge.
Definitely, Penny. I think, remember the fund, and we understand the industry that we're in, that sometimes it can get a bit tricky to honor your obligations. But it is always imperative that when an employer hit that, immediate communication to the fund, it's important so that the fund can assist to take that employer from non-compliant state to a compliant state. There are employers who, instead of doing that, they make arrangements with members to say, members are complaining about they're not being paid enough, and the employer comes and say, okay, fine, I won't deduct contributions from your salary. At face value, it looks like that member is benefiting.
Correct.
But in actual fact, you are disadvantaging the member, because not only are you breaching the rules and the law, that member's retirement benefit, it's not going to be enough when the time of need comes. So
Correct.
Employers who comes and say, yeah, but I did not deduct contributions, it does not make you less of any other employer who deducted and kept contributions. They all fall in the same bucket, because the obligation in terms of the rules and Section 13A is deduct and pay the contributions to the fund at a particular date.
Correct. 100%. Yeah. We can't overemphasize this. I keep on the one, I believe quite strongly, and I think all of us that work in the retirement space, and I know you as our administrators believe the same. We must remember retirement funds form part of a social security in our country. We are forming that type of social security for members who belong to our fund, who when they retire have something. We can't, it's very difficult in this country when people stop working to then go and live off a SASSA grant. You can't live off that. So that's why we say to our employers, think of it from your members, from your employees who work for you. They work to save, to provide for their families, to save for their retirement. Understand it in that perspective, and understand that they're working for their nest egg one day, to be able to rest after they've worked hard. And it's a hard industry for our members to work in. So I always say, remember, we fall part of a bigger social security, and retirement funds are not just something that are there to take a member's money. It's there to plug that hole for our members. I don't know if you feel as strongly as what I do about that, Malisela. I know I'm very passionate.
Definitely, Penny. I feel the same way. And if you look at what the impact of non-compliance is, I think we're speaking over it now. The impact of an employer not paying contributions can be catastrophic to the member, but not only for the member, it can also affect the employer. Like we said, when you're not paying contributions, the effect on the members is when they retire, they can't get their monies in full. When they die, their beneficiaries are also impacted by that. Now,
Correct.
you said something very important to say. The fund serves a social security purpose.
Yeah.
Now, if we don't comply, the impact on the fund is now we are no longer serving that social security purpose for which we were created for. We are serving
Correct.
something else.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
And maybe for employers, an employer might think, okay, I'm prejudicing the employee, but I am gaining. Like we said, for the employer, the consequences can be very, very dire.
100%.
The
And the one
consequences can be
example,
dire. Yes.
And the one example, sorry to interrupt, that I'm thinking of, and we need to emphasize this. When your members, if an employer is non-compliant, remember, your premiums are not deducted for your risk benefits. So for non-compliant employers, and you say, for example, you have one of your employees, one of the drivers are involved in a car accident, they either lose their lives, unfortunately, we see it happening, or they become disabled. Because you're non-compliant and the premiums haven't been paid into a risk account or into our risk, or the funeral isn't paid, those type of premiums aren't paid, the risk benefits are not covered. What the PFA will do when we refer these complaints to the PFA to say the member didn't get their death or disability benefits, the PFA will make a determination that you, as the non-compliant employer, has to pay that. So it will be 3 times annual salary for death and 3 times annual salary for disability. So the prejudice, that is a very good example of the risk that an employer runs. Isn't it better to pay your contributions across than run the risk of having to pay a 3 times annual salary for a member who has lost their life or has been disabled, and the risk isn't paid? Am I right, Chris?
You are definitely right, Penny. I think we have labored in this point enough. What I want to get out of you is, what is the fund doing, or what are the actions that the fund is engaged in order to address the non-compliance? Because as a compliant employer myself, I might be sitting here thinking, if there are employers like me who are compliant, but there are other employers out there that are not compliant, and Penny and Malisela are saying the impact is catastrophic for members. Surely the fund should be able to say, we are doing something to address that. What is the fund doing?
Yeah, nice point. So the fund, obviously, we are guided by the provisions of 13A, and 13A is very particular. So obviously, we lodge complaints to the Office of the Pension Fund Adjudicator. But before that, remember, we are required, we send out 30-day non-compliance letters, 60-day non-compliance letters, and 90-day non-compliance letters. So those are like issuing letters of demand to the employers. At the same time that those letters of demand go out, we also communicate directly with members to it, and we are legally obliged to do so. We communicate with members to say, your employer, we note that we haven't received your contributions, and from your employer, And these are the actions we are taking. So at every step, 30, 60, 90 days, we send SMSs. And if I'm not mistaken, we publish them through the benefit counselor. Notification goes out, messages go out to members directly. At the same time, we report these matters of non-compliance, of these non-compliant employers, to the FSCA in terms of the conduct, in terms of 13A. Section 13A and the conduct standard. So those reports are uploaded onto the FSCA website monthly. We also instruct attorneys to institute criminal prosecutions against directors or responsible persons. Obviously, the main aim that we've got, or main purpose we've got from the 13A process, is we don't want to put your business, an employer out of business. We don't want to throw directors into jail. That's not the purpose of this. We do this, so we do quite a lot of engaging with the non-compliant employers through our attorneys. Myself, I do it as well, and we communicate directly. So if we can assist you with a payment plan, and we've got specific parameters that the board has defined to say if you are 6 months in arrears, we'll come up with a payment plan as long as you get current up to date. So we do have a parameter within which we negotiate outstanding acknowledgements of debt or payment plans. So the idea is not to increase the aggravation and complaints and everything. The idea is open up a relationship with the non-compliant employer so that we can get the employer compliant. When it gets to the point that the employer is not cooperating with us, then we really refer to the NPA and to SAPS, and we take legal process. We've had instances where we've referred civil cases through the High Court. But the point is, if the employer comes to us and is willing to work with us, and we were willing to help you through a period where you might have certain challenges, we will work with you to come up with a mutually beneficial AOD that works for everybody. So remember, the purpose is we want to build relationships with our employers, not put them out of business and not be antagonistic with them. I don't know if there's anything. Have I missed anything, Chris? Anything that you think?
Yes, Penny, just to add there, and I think what you said is important, and I think the direction of the fund is what I like most. The fund is saying, we are here.
Yeah.
If you encounter any problems, come to us. We are able to assist you. Now, if you don't come to us, the law will take its course. And if you read Section 37 of the Pension Funds Act, it says an employer that fails to pay contributions or is non-compliant in terms of Section 13A can be jailed for a period not exceeding 10 years or to a fine not exceeding 10 million.
Correct.
Now,
yep.
If I'm an employer, surely I should not want to find myself in that space. And the fund is saying, when you encounter problems, we are here to assist you. So we encourage employers to engage the fund in the event they're having problems to avoid the 10-year jail term and the 10 million rand fine. Remember, when we started, I said that this part, the jail and the 10 million, will be directed at who? The person identified in terms of Section 13, 8 and 9.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to find myself in that situation, Penny. So
no, neither would I.
I fully agree. And I like what the fund is doing to say, please come to us as the fund. When you encounter problems, don't wait for too long for you to engage, because it might be too late for us to help.
Exactly. Yes. Because there's certain, the board has got, our trustees have got a fiduciary duty. So, and if they don't take action, and I do emphasize this, it's not as if the fund has got a choice as to whether they want to take these actions or not. We have to. The board has to. A failure to follow this process, am I right, Chris? Will question, the FSCA will question the the trustees and whether we've got a competent board. And
Definitely, Penny,
yeah,
you are correct.
yeah.
Because Section 7 of the Pension Fund Act says the board must take all reasonable action to ensure that contributions are paid. Now, if that duty is breached, it means the board itself is in trouble, not only the employer. The board of the fund is in trouble for failure to exercise their duties.
Correct. Sorry, I've gone a stretch ahead. No, 100%. Yeah. Oh, right. And I think we've emphasized this point quite a lot. I think we can move on. Let's see where we are next. I don't know if we've got any questions. Is there a hand up somewhere?
Lorraine,
Yes, absolutely, we
Lorraine
do.
sent us up.
Lorraine. Oh, hi, Lorraine.
Lorraine, if you could please unmute yourself as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yes, as the fund administration, I fully agree with what Maricela and Penny is trying to carry over. Just to emphasize from an administration point of view as well, designing AOD does not take you out of non-compliance. You need to comply with the AOD. You need to comply with what the order of the AOD is. By saying that, we will look at the non-compliant periods, where you should be, what is the current period that you should be in before the next payment date, as well as all LPI that is already outstanding or estimated LPI that will be due once you've made your payment. So all those factors need to be taken into consideration with the employer before engaging to an AOD to make sure that they will be able to comply with that AOD.
Correct. Yeah, because Lorraine, you've made an important point, and I think you can confirm this. We generally have had quite a lot of difficulties with some AODs. And what we're finding is, and we're trying to stop this. So, and it doesn't help if you sign an AOD now, you don't comply, and you just pay the AOD, but you fall into non-compliance then again for the current period. So we're finding that there's a cycle. I don't know if you found that, Lorraine.
No, definitely. That's the reason why I'm stressing this out.
Yeah,
is that the compliance with the AOD is just as important because it is an order. So say, for instance, the employer is non-compliant, then it falls away immediately, and the employer is once again fully liable for making payment towards the contributions in full. So yes. you can't think of signing an AOD today, non-compliance with the AOD for the next few months, and then try and negotiate the second AOD for the same period. It means that you are non-compliant, and then there will be enforcement, as you've explained, Penny, towards that non-compliance. So it's very important that an employer weighs up the options. Is it not better financially to bring the contributions up to date at once, if possible? And if you agree to an AOD, make sure that financially it will be the best for you, because we need to put the member first all the time, because it becomes hectic at claim status when there is no compliance on contributions. It's difficult for a fund to process claims with outstanding contributions. That can relate to members not being willing to accept the AOD that the employer has signed, and the member can still go and lay a complaint at the PFA, which then will rule, or can rule, that member's contributions must be brought up to date, which means the PFA order will overrule an AOD.
Yes, that's a good point, Lorraine. Very good point. Yep.
We also have Pepetzi. Please forgive me if I did butcher your name a bit, but I'm just gonna quickly allow Mike from your end, if you could do it the same. on your side as well, please do unmute and then you can pose your question. Thank you. Pepezi, if you could please unmute yourself as well. Pepezi, if you could please unmute your microphone on your end as well. Okay, perhaps while we wait for Pepezi, we can commence, so we can continue and we can always come back to the questions.
Okay, so Malisela, how do we check if you're a member, how do you check if our employer is compliant?
Thank you, Penny. As members of the fund, and I think this is for me, not many funds have this in place. So members will rely on the fund to inform them that their employees are non-compliant. However, in our fund, we have developed measures to ensure that members, at a click of a button, they are able to check if their employer is non-compliant. And it's easy step. What the member has to do is the member just has to register in the member portal, and we encourage members to do that. And Penny, I'm glad that if you look at our record, the 2-point record,
Yeah,
most of our members are registered here because
yeah,
almost 95% or 90% of the claims for 2-point come through the member portal because you don't need an employer engagement. So we encourage all those members not only to use the member portal for claiming their 2-point, but also to view their contributions, whether their contributions are up to date. So
yeah,
it's an easy process. On the screen, you have the number there, the 087 the 240 704, where the members can register for those members that have not registered. But we've seen an uptake in members that are registered in the portal. And it's important, and we encourage that members remain in the portal so that if they don't get the SMSs that you talked about of their employer non-compliance, at a click of a button, the members are able to then say, oh, my employer has not paid contribution. And this is working, Penny, because I deal with complaints from the OPFA. In the complaints, members, what they write in the complaints, they normally say, when I checked on my phone, I realized my employer is not paying. So it means the portal it's working and doing what it's supposed to do. But we encourage members to utilize that portal.
Yeah. I think, as you say, the one good thing that came out of the 2-pot was definitely the uptake we had on this member benefit council, the portal. And it's aligned to what the fund and what we're trying to do to improve financial outcomes and financial literacy, I think. So I think our communication plan is we emphasize members, and I think we send out newsletters and news flashes quite often. On all our member newsletters, we put in the number and request members to register on the portal. And it's also an easy way for members to update their data. So when they want to claim, we know who they are and we've got their information. It will, so I think you're right. This is a very good platform that we've introduced.
Definitely, Penny. I think, look, it's important that members have this thing. At a click of a button, if I can go into my WhatsApp and be able to read all the latest news, about the fund and updates. I think it's a massive a milestone for the fund and its members, because like you see here, you can check your fund balance, you can
Yeah.
check if your fund contributions are up to date. You can even share your beneficiary nomination form using this platform, or you can download your benefit statement at any time. Unlike before, Penny, for those that have been in the retirement funds for some time, will know that benefit statement are normally issued once every year. And so now you are able, as a member of the fund, just on your phone, go into your WhatsApp, and then bam, you have your benefit statement. I think it's an important tool to have. I cannot emphasize the
Agreed.
importance of having this as a member.
Yeah, I agree. You know, that communication is so important for our members. And we're not only talking for non-compliance, but for other important little comms and tidbits that we communicate for our members, you know, being budget or whatever, in line with our communication plan.
No, definitely, Pen. You are right. And like I was saying, so members should not only use it to check whether employers are non-compliant. For any other information that you want to know with the fund, you go into the portal, or if you want to communicate with the fund,
Exactly. Yeah.
you can use the member portal.
Yeah. I think we've got a hand, Bianca.
Yes, we sure do. And that is Marizen. Marizen, if you could please also unmute from your side.
Thank you so much. I just want to find out from a transporter point of view. I've had a couple of queries last year from drivers where they checked on WhatsApp their balance or their contributions, and it was always a couple of months behind, even when we were up to date. So I just want to know, is there a delay? And if so, how long is the delay?
They should, sorry, Mariette, eh?
Marizon.
Marizon, and there shouldn't be a delay. What happens is, so say, for example, now we're reconciling the contributions, March contributions now are in the process of being reconciled. So I get reports on non-compliance by the 15th for March, I'll get it by the 15th of May. So if like a member goes on today, 23rd of April, they won't see their March contributions uploaded yet. They'll probably only start seeing them in the next week or two. So it could be a timing issue. There shouldn't be more than about a month delay. Am I right, Malicela? And we've got Lorraine online. She can also confirm from front office. Am I right?
Yes, Penny, that's my understanding. And maybe, Marizon, if you have instances where members are seeing something different to what we have, you must immediately bring it to the attention of the fund.
Yes, definitely.
So that we check whether is it a system problem, the portal problem, or contributions have not been allocated for one reason or another. Like we said initially, that where the schedules are not correct or whatnot, there might be a delay in the allocation of contributions. So we need to investigate to determine what is the cause for that timing delay, and we address it immediately. And I think, Lorraine, maybe you might want to add a few words there as to whether there can be a delay in the allocation of contributions.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I can confirm the main reasons for a delay in contribution allocation will definitely be if there's a data problem. So what is a data problem? As we referred previously in this webinar, we referred to the minimum conduct standards. That is a requirement for employers to ensure that the member details is entered correctly. So if we reconcile contributions as per the finalization of the billing of the employer, that data needs to go through a validation process to see if there's any duplications, etc., etc. Thereafter, it gets submitted to the back office for upload against the member records, which means if there is differences, that record cannot be uploaded. But it's not only for that one member, it's the entire member group that cannot be uploaded to member records due to one difference that's there. So we need to emphasize to employers, please ensure that you do have the correct information on your payroll, which you can always refer back to when you do your online billing, that it corresponds exactly to IDs, to the correct information of your members.
Yeah. And I think if there's a problem still, just contact the front office. You've got an allocated administrator, and we will assist you straight away. We're all here to help. So if there is a query, contact us. Don't leave it. Contact us. Any of us are available to help you, and we will make sure that it's sorted out ASAP.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Okay, so where are we now? Oh, okay, so now the question often comes up where an employer hasn't registered. So we have found instances, and I think they come through your complaints that you see, Malisela, where members complain that they're not registered on the fund. And I think you see those type of complaints. Am I correct?
That's correct. That's correct, Penny.
Yeah. So this is where a member's ID is not found on the portal, and he can't see, the system doesn't automatically redirect him to a section where they can submit a query. Obviously, we tell our members, we tell our employees, please contact us. Once again, we'll investigate and provide feedback. Also with our complaints, I think with Malisela can confirm, when a member does complain, we have got an internal mechanism, complaints management system. So we prefer dealing with these type of challenges and these type of complaints internally. And obviously, I think the FSC, the pension fund adjudicator, does ask the question. They do require us to deal with these queries and complaints directly first before they consider a complaint. And obviously,
yes,
Penny, yeah.
Yes, Penny, sorry for the interruption. I think you're making a very important point there. There are instances where the members cannot find themselves on the portal. Obviously, the portal will redirect them to a space where they can lodge a query. But members can also contact us they directly. They are also welcomed into our working centers. And I think if you in your next slide, there is an email address there that members can use. Complaints at TSRF at salt.co.za or TSRF info, where members can lodge the direct complaints with us. You are right, the OPFA encourages the fund and members to resolve their complaints before they are lodged with the OPFA. Hence, that process of the OPFA, they call it the RTF, refer to fund, where the fund, the members and the employers are given a time frame within which they can resolve the matter before the adjudicator formally register that complaint. Remember, we also have working centers where the members can just walk in and then the contact center people there will assist them, check their benefits, or they can register their complaints there, and the complaints get investigated, and we provide a formal response to that complaint.
Yeah. And I know that we've uploaded on our website our complaints management framework, so that's available for members as well, just so that they understand the internal process that we've got for managing complaints. Okay. So, Chris, next interesting thing and something let's talk about fraud in our sector?
Yes, Penny.
Yeah. Yeah. Auditor's
And
questions, yeah. The auditor always
yes,
asks.
we might think that when people invest their monies for retirement, they won't think of any other thing except for that, for the purpose for which the money is there for. But sometimes you encounter these problems, either perpetrated by the members themselves, assisted by the employers, or some skelms out there
Some
who,
skeletons.
yes,
You're
who
right.
who then decide to do other things. But I think
Yeah.
it's important to know that in wherever there is transactions going on, and it happens everywhere. The bank, they will also have this kind of things. Us as pension funds will also have this kind of claims that are purportedly coming from members or are coming from members that want to defraud the fund. There are instances where you find an employer signs a blank withdrawal form
Yeah.
for a particular member, and a member shares that with his colleagues, and they do other things.
Yeah.
Now, in order to keep that, I think the administrator now says no, we will only accept claim forms in order to protect both parties, the member, the fund, and the employer.
Yeah.
Where claim forms are submitted via personal email addresses, that the administrator and the fund will apply caution in
Yeah.
accepting such a claim form.
Yeah.
A more viable approach will be for the employer to submit such a claim form together with the employer signature and stamp. And I think in doing that, you avoid a situation wherein there are claims that are coming through via personal email addresses, but with valid employer stamps. Because, like I said before, the employers will just say, "Okay, Mr. Tamil, if you are claiming," they stamp, they give you a an empty form. Now, someone who has other ulterior motives can share that claim form with his colleagues. But if the claim comes from the employer is able to say, "I know this person is terminating and is claiming, and we are certain that both the employer, the fund, and the members are protected."
Correct.
And I think as the fund administrator, the member portal will still be the number one space to claim for the 2 points. And then, like I said, because there is no employer contact in the 2 pot claims, it's a seamless process when it's done through the portal, because obviously the login details and everything, and it's like your bank card.
Yeah.
That the PIN for, the account number, it only belongs to you. So it minimizes the risk of any fraudulent claims. So we encourage employers and members alike to say, when they claim, employers, please assist your members in submitting these claims on their behalf, because it minimizes this risk.
Correct. So we do, and the point, we do have instances where we've got employers that have gone into liquidation. And this is, so in those instances, and where members can't get those claim forms signed, we do have an internal process as well that we follow, we will check, because generally we've got a list of liquidated employers, and we will check the liquidation allegation of these employers, and we've got an internal process where those claim forms can be signed internally, but those are the minority, because we generally still prefer claim forms to be signed, as you say, and stamped by the employer, or if there's a liquidator, by a liquidator. So generally that's what we do as well.
No, definitely, Penny.
Yeah.
And I think we need to emphasize this.
Yeah.
Protect yourself.
Yeah.
Never share your member portal or personal details with everyone. And
Not yet. And ngathi akakho available because I got responded.
Sorry about that, colleagues.
apologies there, colleagues, for the
Apologies.
interruption. Yes. Like I was saying, I'm saying as members, you can never share your member portal passwords or personal details with everyone else.
Yeah.
And the fund and SOL can never ask you about your bank card or app pin or passwords. Those are your own personal details.
Yeah.
And I think for members, it is important when you receive emails, the tone of the email sometimes, or the tone of the message sometimes tell you that you must be suspicious of that. So the fund and the administrator, they always communicate in a business-like language.
Correct.
So if you see anything that does not sound business-like, please take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point, Melissa. And I think that goes for employers as well. So, I think employers also have to be careful that they don't. We've never had instances like this, but I'm thinking off the cuff. What if employers get an urgent phone call from somebody to say, oh, you've got outstanding contributions paid to this bank account? Same rules apply. Get hold of the employer must rather communicate directly with the fund, with the administrator who's allocated in front office to them to assist. So I don't think the fund or SALT will ever contact a member or an employer to say, do something quickly, or I think we're very careful. And this is just a general word of protection advice. Can I call it, Malisela?
Definitely, Penny. You are right. And I think from the administrator point of view, because we are contracted to serve the members, no SALT agent or employee can ask a member any favor, financial or otherwise, in
Correct.
order to help them process their claims or to fast track their claims. If
Correct.
that happens to you as a member or as an employer, please contact us.
Yeah.
Like I said, our offices, our working centers across the country, the phone numbers, I think you are well aware of it, the 0874056377, or the website, or you go into the member portal to report such conduct.
Yeah. I think we've got a hand up, Marisela. Lorraine?
Yes, Lorraine.
Yes, thank you. To the employers, if anyone ever ask you to pay money into a bank account, you can always refer back to your billing system, which indicates the correct bank account details for contributions to be paid. So you can always go back to the billing system to verify if that banking details that you've received is correct. We will never communicate that banking details other than what is on the online billing system that is available to you.
and I think in the fund's existence from when we've been registered as a retirement fund, which is 2008, we've never changed our banking details. Correct. Yeah. So just a word of warning. Okay. So Chris, it seems as if we've come to the end. I feel as if I've missed out on something.
No, Penny. I think we can reiterate get this to say, if you want to make contact with us, you are welcome to pop into our working centers. You can call us. You can go into the website if you want to complain, or in the members portal.
And also the WhatsApp, very important, the WhatsApp. So we've just an interesting side note. What we've done a survey in the last 3 months on the communication, and we're finding that the WhatsApp's proving to be very popular. So I'm happy to announce that I think that everyone feels comfortable with the WhatsApp, and encourage people to use it.
Absolutely. Great. Yeah, so thank you, colleagues, for the very insightful and thought-provoking presentation. I guess key takeaway from me that was raised by one of the speakers is that retirement fund form part of the social security of our members, and we somehow hold their future. And again, non-compliance does not only affect our members, but it does affect the beneficiaries as well. So it's clear that addressing non-compliance in our industry requires not only awareness, but a shared responsibility and proactive engagement from all stakeholders. And to all our attendees, thank you for staying with us. I think it's safe now to go ahead and officially open the Q&A floor. We already have Azwi, whose hand is up. Azwi, I have unmuted you from my side. If you could please go ahead and do the same on your end as well. Azwi. If you could please unmute yourself. Yes. We can hear you. You can go ahead.
The thing I want to ask is, what if a company is not complying, but not on the funds, actually about the treatment in the company? So how do I go on with this one?
So just to clarify, so are you saying that you mean you're not being treated fairly in the workplace on your working conditions, or is it specifically related to the fund, to the retirement fund?
Now, this one is based on our working conditions. And then I've realized that most of the people in our company, they are afraid to speak out, because even now, they want to join a union. So I wanted to understand if is there any way we can raise the issue, because according to the way I read most of the pamphlets on this thing of bargaining council, I've realized that it's not like a union. So I was advising them not to join another union, so that we can find out first from you, how does it work?
Okay, so how it works is, so remember the issues there's two different legislative frameworks that are relevant for you. So we focus on your retirement funding. So it's how you retire, because in terms of the funding of the retirement funds, what you're obliged to, remember your, so the retirement funding is dealt with by us in terms of the Pension Funds Act and whatever. When it comes to your working conditions, those fall under the Labour Relations Act. The Labour Relations Act is different, and we don't deal with the Labour Relations Act, although we fall part of it because we are negotiated benefit, part of your salary, part of your working conditions. I recommend there are unions that are representative, that are in the industry. So you've got quite a few unions. You've got Motor Transport, you've got SATAWU, You've got quite a few unions that are representative in the industry. And if you need advice or assistance with that, I would recommend that you contact one of your regional officers, and they can come and they can assist you and give you advice on your rights as an employee related to your treatment at work. So we can't advise you on that. We can only advise you on your retirement fund.
Okay.
Does that help you?
Yes. So
Good.
is there any portal that I can use, especially on the bargaining, like on the WhatsApp thing that we use?
I think if you Google your motor transport, the motor transport workers or SATAWU websites, and have a look if you can get a regional representative to assist you and ask them for assistance.
Okay.
Great. Can we try Pepetzi again?
Can we try?
Pepetzi, please. Pepetzi.
Okay.
Okay. I guess Mchengu can also come in while we're waiting for Pepetzi. Mchengu, if you could please go ahead and pose a question. Mchengu, if you could please unmute yourself as well.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Yeah, my question is based on the employer, because as a member, I was dismissed from the company last year, August. So up to now, there's nothing that I've received from SALT because of the forms that I was given from the SALT. The employer refused to sign them. So I don't know on that matter, is it reliable with the meeting, or can I get an assistance in order for me to withdraw the funds?
Colleagues, you heard that. So Mr. Mchengu is no longer working with a certain employer, but the employer hasn't signed the forms in order for the gentleman to submit a claim. Anyhow, we can assist him.
Marisela?
Penny, do you want to take it, or do you want me
Yes.
to take?
Yeah, I can. What I would recommend is that you contact one of the either send a WhatsApp or phone to the front of the call center, and they will check if, although you said that the claim was never submitted, or did you submit claim forms that were unsigned?
I never submitted anything because the forms,
Okay.
which are,
Okay.
yes, which are received from SALT, the employer refused to sign them, and the employer himself didn't submit any forms on my behalf. So I'm unemployed with no funds being refunded to me.
Okay, so
That's very sad.
yes, so there
Hey.
are certain, sorry, there are certain provisions that where, well, let's start from this. An employer generally isn't permitted not to refuse to sign claim forms. However, if an employer feels that you are indebted to, and there's certain very limited provisions that you're indebted to them, it could be from criminal action or theft, but those are very limited in terms of the definitions of 37D of the Pension Funds Act. If an employer feels that you are indebted to it for something, they can refuse to sign, but they've got to tell you, and they've got to give you, there's a specific process that they can't just refuse to sign your claim forms. What I recommend that you do is get hold of our call center, and they will advise you. They will see that, because I think it's better for you to have a one-on-one with our call center, speak to them, and then let's see if we can help you from the fund to see exactly what the reason for this is, and the agents can help you try and engage with the employer to find out what the reason is. But I think it's because there would be, there's personal questions that they'll ask you. Please call our call center at one of these numbers, and they will assist you, and we will assist you to sort this out.
Penny, if I may come in as well.
Yeah.
Perhaps I can also suggest we do have our key account manager online. If I can maybe ask the gentleman to just put in his details, and then we will get one of our service agents to actually call, because we will also brief the service
Perfect.
agent what the issue is, instead of the gentleman calling and having to explain everything. So I think if Mr. Mshengi, you can put down your details on the chat box, we will get one of our service agents as well as the key account manager to also give you a ring and assist.
Thank you, Bianca. You're right. Definitely. That'll be great. Thank you.
Excellent. Great. Claudia, if we can please unmute your side, unmute on your end as well, Claudia.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you. You may go
Penny,
ahead.
I have a question that it just recently came to our attention, and I'm not sure about this. As you know, the main agreement's very long. But temporary employment companies, okay, we have employees that work for 1 month or maybe a second month or so. Just want to really know what is the legislation on the Provident Fund contributing, because there is some info that I received of contributing only on month 3, becoming as permanent. What is your legislation on the outsourcing side of SALT?
As it stands at the moment, and I know that this has been negotiated or discussed at high levels. But as it stands at the moment, the main agreement says as soon as somebody is employed in the industry and falls within the bargaining unit, contributions must be paid. They must be registered on the fund. Because generally,
sorry to interrupt. I don't want to get this wrong. They do contribute from when they enter, and then they get their council number on the road freight side, but specifically on the Provident side.
Yes,
is it also a clause that from month 1, even if they leave after 1 month, they okay? So there's no thing like from month 3.
No, unfortunately not. No, definitely.
I just wanted to clarify that, because they starting a process where they thought, okay, that the company must pay the first 2 months towards the when he leaves, and then from month 3 it goes to SALT. But and they said no, but there is a thing for temporary employment services stating that. But if you say no, I just want to not them to proceed something. Okay.
Malisela, just to check, in case I've lost my mind, Malisela, I don't think there's any such provision.
No, you are right, Penny. There's no provision in the rules that caters for that holiday 3 months, whether as temp or when a member is on probation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. No, thanks. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Great. We also have a question here on the chat box who says, I would like to be assisted regarding my contribution, as it clearly shows that the contribution stopped on September 2024. And I was also stopped from attending work due to a transfer of employment contract, of which it was conducted without a consultation with employees.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think leave your details. Let's remember, once again, as I've spoken to that first gentleman, he had a problem at the workplace. We can assist you with regard to your contributions to the retirement fund, with regard to any employment issues that fall under the Labour Relations Act, that it doesn't fall within our jurisdiction, basically. So can I, if they've, with regard to that, if you've got a complaint about the way you treated from work, there you're going to have to, we can't assist you with that advice. Speak to somebody who can assist you. We can only confirm when contributions were received and when they ended. Am I correct, Malisela?
Yes, definitely, Penny. You are correct. And if the member says I was unfairly transferred, obviously it might constitute an unfair labor practice, which has to be dealt with by the CCMA or bargaining council, whichever is jurisdiction, to deal with that matter.
Correct.
Great. There was a question under the Q&A box. I'm just quickly navigating. Okay, it's also from Sheng. It says, does the company comply when it does not give you the agreement form? Okay, I think this has been addressed, is what the gentleman was asking about, the employer not able to sign his form.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, great. So I think the Q&A has been looked at. I'm looking at the chat just to double check. We have answered all the questions. Thank you so much, Mr. Shabalala. I've received your details. We will definitely be in touch. Okay, there was another one that says, when does the member allowed to withdraw their funds from the Transport Sector Retirement Fund? It's the same gentleman, but I guess he just wants to find out when are members allowed to withdraw funds from the fund.
So thank you, Bianca. I think it's an important question. As a general rule, to the extent that you are still employed, you are not entitled to claim your benefit. But with the introduction of the two-pot system, you can now access a portion of your benefit, your savings portion of the benefit, once every financial year, to the extent that what is in there, it's more than 2,000. So unlike before, where you have to leave employment for you to access, now the law has changed to say you can access a portion of your benefit every year.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Azu's hand is up. Azu, if you could please go ahead and also unmute from your side.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to ask is that in our company there's people who are not part of the bargaining council. So I wanted to understand, how does this happen? Because most of the people who falls under management, supervisors, the ops, I heard they're not part of the bargaining council, but we work for the same company.
Okay, let me answer that for you. I know it is quite confusing. So remember, the all bargaining council rules, and specifically the road freight main agreement, define what the bargaining council is comprised of. So generally, they focus on there's certain grades and certain categories of jobs or positions that fall within the bargaining council. What it means is that it's only those positions that are negotiated, terms and conditions are negotiated for those positions. So when you find that the positions like supervisors and managers, they get promoted out of what we call the bargaining unit. So the bargaining unit is where the bargaining council negotiates terms and conditions. Once you're promoted out of the bargaining unit, you don't fall within that negotiated forum. You're not within that bargaining unit, and in that way they don't belong to the bargaining council. They don't get basically the protection of the bargaining council. So that's why once you get promoted out, you get promoted out of the bargaining unit. So, and generally your bargaining unit ensures that your entry level, your general workers, your positions that generally are your positions that people can't negotiate for themselves, those positions and those terms and conditions are actually negotiated by somebody who is competent to negotiate. And that's the only reason. But your higher, once you get promoted to manager, they think, there's you can bargain for yourself. So those positions are dealt with separately outside of the bargaining unit. And that's the only reason. And that's why only the bargaining unit falls within this fund. I hope that's answered your question.
Okay, and then what about supervisors? Because they work the same sector with us. They are not in the offices and everything. They are downstairs and with us, they do everything that we do at the bottom.
Yeah, remember, you've got to look at where the main agreement actually, it's negotiated at bargaining council level, at the bargaining council, which jobs and which grades fall within the bargaining unit. So it could be that those supervisors are outside of the bargaining unit. So when you look at the main agreement, it will say what positions are included. And it could be, even if you're working on the same floor, it could be that they're at a higher grade than others working down there. And that's the only reason they wouldn't be included in there. But those are very agreed by both employer parties and employee representatives. So the unions represent for employees, and an employer participate, and they negotiate which positions fall within, which grades fall within the bargaining unit. So your supervisors are negotiated outside of the bargaining unit.
Great. It looks like we have covered all the questions, and all those whose hands were up. Just a moment or two to just double check everything is covered. Well, I guess this brings us to the end of the session. To my speakers today, thank you so much for such an insightful discussion. We appreciate the time and the presence of all the guests who made time to join us. We do look forward to welcoming you again in our future sessions. And until then, please keep safe and be warm. Any closing remarks from your side, Penny, Malisela?
Thank you, Bianca. Firstly, thank you to you for hosting us and guiding us through this.
Thank you to
and thank you to my colleague, my legal colleague, Chris Malisela. Well, I call you Chris and Malisela, but to my colleague, who I love working with him and presenting with him. And thank you to everybody that actually took the time just to get to know us and to get to see where we're coming from and to get tips on how we can help you. So it's good to meet you. Thank you for everybody for taking the time. Thank you.
Great stuff. Okay, we will circulate the recording as well as the slides in the next coming days. Thank you and take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Right.